Hello friends, thank you for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be considering the study article number 11 for this week, May 19th to 25th, 2025. And this one is entitled, Imitate Jesus' Zeal for Preaching. The theme text reads, The Lord sent them out by twos ahead of him into every city and place where he himself was to go. Luke 10:1. Focus. 4 ways in which you can imitate Jesus' zeal in your ministry. Let's start with paragraph 1 question. What is one quality that sets Jehovah's people apart from the world? And this is about their zeal, our zeal for the ministry. Very important quality. However, from time to time, we might feel that our desire to preach is just not there. That happens, and it happens to everybody in certain moments in life. Number 2, what can sometimes make it hard to maintain zeal for the ministry? Some things, for example, we don't feel comfortable with some kind of preaching. That's understandable. It happens to some brothers and sisters. Or we enjoy the atmosphere of peace in certain territories, but not in other territories. Probably we don't feel comfortable with the people in the territory. On the other hand, we may have been preaching for years in the same territory with little positive response. Or we may meet people who reject the message, and of course that won't be one of the greatest experience in that morning. Number 3, let's read first Luke 3:13, 6-9. We read, Then he went on to tell this illustration. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it, but found none. Then he said to the vine dresser, Here is the tree, here it's 3 years that I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree, but have found nothing. Cut it down. Why should it keep the ground useless? In reply, he said to him, Master, leave it alone for 1 more year until I dig around it and put on manure. If it produces fruit in the future, well and good, but if not, then cut it down. So, how does Luke 13:6-9 illustrate Jesus' zeal? And we notice his right and powerful attitude, his desire. And we notice how Jesus spent about 3 years preaching to the Jews. And just as the vine dresser refused to give up hope on the fig tree, Jesus didn't give up on people or slow down in his ministry. On the contrary, he intensified his efforts to reach their heart, and he did it. He made it. What 4 aspects of Jesus' example will we consider? The first one, he focused on Jehovah's will. Second, he paid attention to Bible prophecy. Third, he relied on Jehovah for support. And fourth, he remained positive that some would listen to him. Let's start with the first one. He focused on Jehovah's will. Number 5, how did Jesus show that he was focused on doing God's will? Jesus knew his purpose in life, and this was about the ministry, and of course, certain things very important. And one of these important things includes the ministry. So his primary focus in life was the ministry work, the preaching work. and he traveled from city to city and from village to village teaching others. We read about at Luke 13:22. And also he trained additional disciples to work with him as preachers. Number 6. How does the preaching work relate to other assignments we might have? For example, we build theocratic facilities or serve at Bethel to support the needs in the field. And it's very noticeable how these works are related with the preaching work. Okay, that's very important. And one brother, a good elder, says, he reminds himself that no theocratic activity can replace or should replace the preaching work, because this is our primary assignment. Very important thought. 7. Let's read from the Bible 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Let's read it together. This is fine and acceptable in the sight of our Savior God, whose will is that all sort of people should be saved and come to an accurate knowledge of truth. What does Jehovah wants us to keep on preaching? This is very effective and very important, because in that way people could get salvation. And we receive some tools like the brochure "Let People Make Disciples," and this provides practical suggestions that can help us to start conversations with the goal of making disciples. Very important goal. Okay, now he paid attention to Bible prophecy. Number 8. How did knowing Bible prophecy influence the way Jesus used his time? And we notice he well-known Bible prophecies because he was the Word, Jehovah's Word. He was completely aware of every detail, and he understood very, very well how every single prophecy was fulfilling in certain times. And he also was aware about the prophecies concerning about his time and this system and this planet, and he preached with zeal in order to finish the work he had been given to do, because he understood very well the order of the things according to the prophecy. Number 9. Why do Bible prophecies motivate us to preach with zeal? We understand where we are thanks to Bible prophecy, like a calendar. So we understand about this world, it won't be forever, and this is very important. We understand Bible prophecy about the king of the north, king of the south, very important prophecies. We understand the prophecy of Daniel's statue, very important prophecy. So thanks to that, we understand the urgency of preaching with zeal, with a sense of urgency. Very important and powerful. Number 10. In what other ways can Bible prophecies stimulate our zeal? The next one. In what other ways can Bible prophecies stimulate our zeal? We have the example of one sister, and she says, when I see what people are dealing with today, I realize that these promises are not just for me, but for them too. So this is spiritual relief she's sharing with people in her territory. And she understands they really need to hear this message of salvation. Okay, very important. And another sister, she reads Isaiah 11:6-9, and this motivates her to share the good news even with those who don't look like they will accept it. So we notice how the prophecies, certain prophecies related with the new world, can motivate us to preach with zeal and love for people. He relied on Jehovah for support. 11. Let's read from the Bible Luke 12:49 and 53. And let's read it together. We read Jesus' words. I came to start a fire on the earth, and what more is there for me to wish if it has already been it? Okay, number 53. They'll be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. So, why did Jesus need to rely on Jehovah for help to keep zealously preaching? He had powerful enemies, actually the offspring of the serpent. And he identified these individuals, and guess what? These were the religious leaders of his day, God's representatives on earth. That's how they like to be called, God's representatives on earth. And they didn't like Jesus at all. Actually, they really hate Jesus. And they just have a goal: delete supreme Jesus. Okay, so no matter what, that's their goal. That was their goal, and Jesus was aware of it, and he said, I'm not alone, but the Father who sent me is with me. He didn't abandon me to myself, because I always do the things pleasing to him. And thanks to this conviction, Jesus was preaching zealously. Number 12. How did Jesus prepare his disciples to keep preaching in the face of opposition? He trained them. He understood what they're about to face, and he repeatedly assured them that Jehovah, and of course Jesus, would help them even when they face persecution, including the Holy Spirit. And he urged them to be cautious, very important. He instructed them not to force their message on those who didn't want to listen, very important. And he told them to flee if they were persecuted. And very important, he didn't needlessly expose himself to danger. With these clear instructions, Jesus prepared his disciples to face opposition. Number 13. Why can you be certain that Jehovah will help you? Because we can see how Jehovah's hand is helping us through these difficult times, and not just we. We notice how some friends in some countries where are some persecution, they've been persecuted by their faith, by their religious faith, their religious conviction, and they've been receiving this help from Jehovah, from Jesus, and they've been preaching zealously despite persecution. So there's no doubt Jehovah and Jesus, they've been helping their sheep around the earth. And this is very encouraging to think about. How do we know that we'll be able to keep preaching with zeal? Because that's Jesus' promise, and Jesus prayed. When we read at John 17, we notice how Jesus was preaching and begging by his disciples, and there's no doubt this is what Jehovah's people, we've been doing during all these decades, the last century and this year, and even in places where our work is restricted. Our brothers have been able to keep declaring the good news because they rely on Jehovah, not on their own strength. The next one, he remained positive. What shows that Jesus had a positive view of the ministry? He was aware of the spiritual need of people, and he was observing the fruits of his hard work, and he said to his disciples, "The harvest is great. Beg the master of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." He was aware to go to his place with the Father, and he was aware of this great spiritual need, and Jesus never lost sight of the potential for people to respond to good news, and he rejoiced when they did. Number 16. How did Jesus' illustrations convey a positive view of the ministry? He used two illustrations. He used a mustard grain to teach that the kingdom message would expand in an amazing way and have an unstoppable growth. That's the first one. The second one, he used leaven to illustrate how the kingdom message could spread widely and cause changes that might not be immediately apparent. 17. What reasons do we have to remain positive about the ministry? We observe the results. There is a service year annual report every year, and we notice how millions of people they've been attending the memorial of Christ's death. 21 millions around the earth, and we're just 9 millions of servants, and many people, thousands of people, they're studying the Bibles with us, and hundreds of thousands get baptized and enjoy us, and they join us in the ministry. Okay, very important results. What do we want others to observe about us? We'd like they could see Jesus through our conduct, through our speaking, our speech. The way we treat and speak to others, the way we treat others is a reflect of Jesus in our life, in our heart, and of course, God's knowledge. And that's why the Love People brochure is encouraging us to help people with the right attitude. Of course, the ministry is one way, but it's not the only way. And many people recognize the apostles. They began to realize that they had been with Jesus. Now, if we apply this to us, many people in our territory recognize that we are learning from Jesus. Of course. Okay friends, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you so much for joining us in this consideration. We hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you in our next video. Bye for now.